Welcome to Lunch Therapy. This is Interview Friday. Danielle, you're going to like this one. This is going to be a really good one. Jose Salas, great to see you. Rich, fantastic to see you as well. This is going to be a good show because it's all about acting, and it's all about one of the great acting teachers of our time, Ivana Chubbuck. She's going to be here. We're going to have an interview with her. We're going to learn all the inside scoop. Chuck Goldsmith's good to see you. So much energy. Yep, so much energy. I got tons of energy today because I'm excited. Ivana, hi, Matt Wright, Lauren, Kamala. So great to see you all here. Share this thing around because for actors, this is just gold standard. It's the gold standard. So every Friday, for those of you that may not know, we do an interview with an interesting person, somebody I find interesting, and I know you will too. Today, we are very fortunate to have one of the great acting teachers of our time. In the time that I've been in Los Angeles, I have often heard Ivana Chubbuck's name, and I never really met her or read her book. I knew that she had coached many of the most accomplished actors. A few years ago, I was getting back into a scene study class, and scene study class when you're an actor is like the gym for an athlete. If you're not working regularly, or even if you are, it's like you got to go there to work out. You got to go there and stretch yourself, see what's possible, hone your technique. And these environments, though, sometimes can be dangerous because sometimes the acting teacher becomes sort of megalomaniacal and, is just not really out for you. But this is not the case with Ivana Chubbuck, I'll tell you that. Just saw a horsetail whipping around in front of you. Yes, behind me is Moose Lodge up in Washington. These are the elk, and the snow is melting, so that's good. So I was looking around for a nice place to work on my craft, and I went over to Ivana Chubbuck's studio. First, I read her book, which, if you haven't read her book, do so, because it is the modern acting Bible and has a great step-by-step technique process that is I've found it to be super useful. I went over there and studied with a teacher named Michael Monks. I studied there for 2 years. I think I probably did about 50 scenes in that class, and working through these steps and working through this technique was super empowering for me as an actor, I have to say. So let's get into this thing. Let's see what Kamala has to say. Here's a riddle. How can you tell if your acting teacher guru has issues with control, dominance, and sex or not? Wow, I want to hear the answer to that one. Melting snow, yeah. The snow is melting, my friends. We are heading into spring, thank God, from, kind of a Game of Thrones type winter we've had here. Well, let's get into the show. Hey, Guy Fly, how's your eye? I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 As in all episodes of Lunch Therapy, we are going to start by breathing. I hope if this is the first time that you've come to Lunch Therapy that you like and subscribe and comment and, I don't know, lick it if you want. If you want to. And wear a mask, of course. On this show, we always start with 3 breaths. And we're going to do that today. So in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Yes, that was a horse that is actually in the studio. We have an in-studio horse today. I've always wanted a horse. And finally I have one here in the studio. He, ran off somewhere. I think he's hanging out with the squirrel at this point. In through the nose, out through the toes. Anything can happen on this show. Anything at all. Let it go. Don't you love that background? I love it. I've used this a few times on the show. I don't like to repeat too much, but I love this background. I'm not sure what it is, a black hole. Maybe it's a wormhole in space. I don't know. So let's get on to this interview here. We've got one more breath, in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Yes. Master acting teacher Ivana Chubbuck. Let me tell you about her. She's one of the most celebrated acting teachers of our time. She has taught and coached actors such as Charlize Theron, Brad Pitt, Jared Leto, Garry Shandling, Gal Gadot, Shia LeBouf, Gerard Butler, Jim Carrey, Carrie-Ann Moss, all the Carries, I guess. I don't know about Drew Carey. I have to look that one up. But anyway, Matthew Perry rhymes with Carrey. So tons and tons of people. Has coached them to Oscars and Emmys, and she wrote this book called The Power of the Actor, and it has been translated into many, many different languages. You know, in Russia, she's actually of Russian heritage, and they said that she was the modern day Stanislavski, which is huge because Stanislavski is the father of modern acting, and for them to say that in Russia is a big deal. Jose thought that the background looked like a colonoscopy. Nice. Everyone should get those if you're over 50. Michael Vaccaro is here. Great to see you. David Spade. Yes, she coached David Spade. That's right. Joe Dirt. Yes, so here we go. We're going to get into this interview soon. Without further ado, as they say, we're going to have Ivana Chubbuck here, and she is going to explain this for you about acting, about her school, and about herself, which I find is quite interesting because she started out as an actor and then writing, and then also writing for comedy. She was a stand-up comedian. She also worked with Garry Shandling on his comedy and on his show. Anyway, let's get into this thing. Ladies and gentlemen, Ivana Chubbuck. Welcome, Ivana, to our show. This is Ivana Chubbuck. We're on Lunch Therapy. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here and to be a part of your world. And it sounds like it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's one of the rules around here is that we have fun.
Those are my rules too. Yeah. I always say to actors, if you're not having fun, you've made the wrong choices. It's very important, having fun. Why bother doing it if you're going to if it's going to make you unhappy, or if you're pulling up a bunch of stuff that's just going to stick like glue and make you feel bad about yourself. I think, what is the point of doing it? And so you want to find the empowerment in your choices. You want to find the solving of some kind of issue that you've, long-term issue, short-term issue, through the work that you do through your art. Art is a very interesting, it's a gift. It's a gift. And not everybody understands the concept of it. We all enjoy it, but we don't all understand how to apply it. And art is something that is our opportunity to solve, grow, evolve, change our worlds through entertainment. And I think that's pretty cool.
That's interesting that you say that about having fun, because a lot of times your work requires people to dig down deep into some things that are happening currently in their lives that are going to elicit some sort of emotion or some sort of engagement. And the thing that I wanted to say about that is that it can be scary, but it is also fun. Fun isn't always like jumping up and down happy, but it's a lot of times it's being engaged in something. Would you agree?
Oh, I think that's an excellent way to put it. I think that being invested in something automatically gives it adrenaline, which adrenaline automatically gives you organic sense of fun or excitement, I think is probably the better word. But adrenaline is the body's speed. It's the body's version of cocaine, you know? So it's but it's natural, it's organic. And whenever we're really exploring change from a high stake place, adrenaline naturally happens. And adrenaline is what happens in roller coaster rides. Adrenaline happens in scary movies. Adrenaline happens with sexual connection. Adrenaline happens when we really want to win a battle, like a fight that we're having with our significant other, whatever. Adrenaline is what we're going for, and that creates that organic excitement in the physiology of our systems.
That's interesting. When I started acting, I got so much adrenaline, I couldn't even function. You know what I mean? I'd be so like shaking. I couldn't even hold the paper when I would audition.
That's not adrenaline. That's
what is that?
It's called
nerves. What's the difference?
The difference is that adrenaline empowers us to do something. It creates being proactive.
Yeah.
Whereas nerves freezes us.
Yeah.
So one of the tricks I tell people is nerves will freeze you. Nerves can be good. Nerves can be something that promotes us to work harder to get what we want. But if we try to stop the nerves, what happens is that we get more nervous and we feel the obligation to not be nervous, which makes us more nervous. And then we totally freeze and we become like that thing that we have no control. But if we accept our nerves and say, I'm nervous, I should be nervous, I'm an audition, it's important to me, I want to get this job, or I want this person to be impressed by me, I'm nervous for a reason. When you accept the nerves, the cripple part goes away, and then the adrenaline part takes over, and you find yourself doing things that are outside the box because adrenaline makes us do that. That's why we all seek it. But the nerves, the part that cripple us, are the part that when we try to stop being nervous.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting because when we try to cry, we can't.
Yeah.
And we try not to cry, what happens?
We start crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's the idea that you put the pressure on yourself to not do something, it automatically puts you in a place where you're going to do it. So you try not to be nervous, you're going to be nervous. You just have to what we have to do is be aware that nerves are not a bad thing. We have to take away the crippled part, the part that handicaps us, the part that's shaking. So it's nerves versus adrenaline rush. Mm-hmm. Entirely different realities of our system.
Do you ever do physical exercises to warm up for acting or for actors?
Do I do them personally?
Or do you teach them? Or do you teach that in your technique at all?
Well, I personally am not very active. So it's like me personally, not so much. It takes a lot of work for my trainer to get me to work out. And I always have all kinds of excuses not to. Yeah. However, in terms of warm-ups, physical warm-ups, I don't see the point in it. Uh-huh. I think that it's important that we get right to the human equation. And the human equation is what's happened right before, say, said scene is taking place that promotes our need to urgently and with desperation and with depth and need to get our objective. So that means the moment before, which is what goes after getting our objective, is what is our pre-thought process, not physical stuff. Because what we're doing is trying to duplicate either a what-if situation or a real situation that's happened recently that makes you really need whatever the objective is, so that you're in it and you're not faking us, you're not lying to us, you're just really in it to try to solve and win and overcome whatever it is that we need to overcome to get our objective, to achieve our objective. We need something that's going to precede that so that we're not coming from empty space, because life is always a bunch of sequences of things that happen. Like if I, for example, if the scene is a breakup scene and my boyfriend's breaking up with me, if the moment before is I won the lottery and my boyfriend says in the scene, in the moment before that I've created, says, I want to break up with you, I'm going to go like, I don't really care because I just won the lottery. Or you just what the moment before is, I've just lost my job. And then you come in expecting some comfort from your mate, and the person says, well, I don't want to be with you anymore. And it's like, then it's devastating. And then you have to keep that person in your life somehow because you can't lose so much. And so I don't know how one does that in a physical way, but we can do that by duplicating the essence, the pictures, recreating either the real event or a fear-inspired event. That what if I've been fearing that my boyfriend's going to leave me. And so I end up using that in the scene, even though he hasn't left me. I have a fear of that. I bring that into the scene, and all of a sudden I need to win whatever's going on in the scene with great urgency. And physical exercises often are meant to relax you. And I say, well, I don't need to see a confident, relaxed person on the stage or on the screen. I want to see really screwed up people who are so neurotic and going through so much stuff that they're quirky, they're natural. Well, no, it's more interesting. What makes you special is what frightens you. What makes you special is your insecurities, and how we negotiate life through the lens of our fears and insecurities and our traumas is what makes us unusual and unique. And so why would I want to relax that? I'd want to pump it up.
That makes so much sense. One of the things that I really appreciate about your technique. So I've been through a lot of different acting techniques over the years. And I was in Los Angeles, and I had gotten to a place with my acting career where I was just basically was lost. I didn't know. I was kind of off the path, and I didn't realize I got off the path. And I found your studio, and I'd heard about it for many years because you're one of the most prominent teachers in Los Angeles, and you've coached some of the greatest people. I don't want to, I'll go on and on about that. But I had heard about you, and I read your book, and I was like, stop. Really, you've coached Halle Berry and Charlize Theron, some of our great actors, Sylvester Stallone, some of the greatest actors that we have, and also some of the people with the longest careers, which I think is another hallmark of a great actor, is that you can continue to be interesting all these years and also continue to be interesting when you become abundantly wealthy and abundantly stable. A lot of times it's like, how do you still conjure those emotions if your life is all, peaches? And actually, nobody's life is all peaches, right?
I was just going to say, define peaches. Define.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
Define that, because I don't know what that is. There's always something that's going to happen. If I wake up in the morning with a tummy ache, or I couldn't sleep last night, or I woke up at 3:00 in the morning and I couldn't get back to sleep, stuff happens. Life happens. And the idea of stable is just, it's not, it's illogical.
Mm-hmm. Nobody's actually stable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because and nor do we want to be, because if the word in terms of let's just say physically something is stable on, it's like it's not rocking. It's like this my water is just on and it's stably there.
Yeah.
It's not interesting.
Okay.
So the thing is, if I'm finding it's I'm trying to keep it there, but I'm trying to get stable, but it's just finding its way. That's going to be a whole lot more interesting. This is just a bottle of water. Now, how much more interesting was that than just trying to hold it stable to having it be there? So it's like we want to be able to embrace the stuff that makes us embrace things that we're always constantly trying to do to acquire. I'm going to put in quotes: happiness, stability, safety, security. But in the attempt to do so, something's going to go wrong.
Don't you think a lot of us as actors are struggling with our parents because they want us to be stable and safe, and we're taking on a profession that is perhaps being stable and safe is not really what we're after in the art form?
Well, we got to go define stable and safe. I'm a parent. Okay, so I'm a parent, and I want my child to be healthy, I want my child to find her way, but sometimes the best way to find a good relationship or the career that she wants or whatever is to make mistakes, to fall on your face, to hit bottom so change can happen. And so it's like the only way that we feel the need to change or to regroup is when we do hit the ground and we do hit bottom and we do have to, to kind of relook at some of our choices, stupid choices that we've made that have created some self-destructive realities. But it's Charlize Theron actually said something that I think was very important when she was in the actor's studio, and she was talking about me, and she said she learned a lot in class, but she learned more when she fell on her face. And she said, and I fell on my face a lot. And she did. But when she regrouped from learning from the hitting of the bottom, what she did was she just excelled, because she said, I'm not going to see this as failure. I'm going to see this as an opportunity to understand and grow. So as that point of view created the Charlize Theron that you know and love today, because she always tries to learn something from every part that she does. And sometimes she hits it, sometimes she doesn't. But the main thing is that what she's always trying to do is constantly evolve and grow and self-educate, educate from the outside, educate from the inside. And you're going to have to fall on your face a lot. You're going to have to fail a lot to be able to succeed. And I'm talking about metaphorically. I'm talking about spiritually. I'm talking about energetically. I'm not talking about making money.
Yeah. Do you ever get students who don't want to fall on their face, who just want you to praise them, or they want to explain why what they're doing is the right way to do it? And how do you deal with an actor like that? Or do you?
Oh, I deal with that kind of actor a lot. But the point is, it depends on the actor. Sometimes I'll say, well, if you know so much already, why are you here? Why are you spending money? I'll give you back your money. If that's all you want is like compliments, and we're here. Yeah. Like I will truthfully and honestly say, and I've said it on pretty much every class I teach, I will say, I'm not always right about what I'm saying. So someone said, well, what about this? And I go, you know what? Actually, that doesn't become a more interesting way to look at this material. Let's look at it that way. So it's like I'm always learning, changing, and I'm always trying to take other people's lens of how they kind of see the part that they're doing through the lens of their history and their life, and try to make sense of it via both our lenses kind of matching up and creating a riff. Do you write with, you're a writer, right? You write too?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So do you ever write with partners?
I don't tend to write with partners. No.
Okay. Have you ever written with partners?
I have. I don't always, I don't know how to get into the flow with partner. As far as writing goes. For me, it feels like a solitary thing.
Okay, and that's because you're not riffing. And the thing is that you have to riff. You have to do is you have to take off what the other person's saying and not say, why aren't you listening to my ideas? You're saying,
right.
Oh, that idea gives me another idea, not the one I started off with, but your idea, even though it was contradictory or antithetical to my idea. But wait a minute, your idea makes my idea. I'm going to change my thought process of how I think about my idea. Otherwise, the bottom line is the same of what I came up with, but I changed it off of the idea you came up with, and that other person then riffs off of what that is. It becomes like this, talking to one another. Have you ever done improv comedy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it seems very similar to what you're talking about.
Exactly.
We have to be yes and. And I love that.
It's not just yes and. It's like taking it in, and it's not just yes and. It's like it could be but and.
Right. Right. You just don't want to squelch them, which is similar to what you're talking about with writing. Is basically you don't want to be like, no, that's no good. My idea is this, and I think that is that's really good advice that for me as a looking forward to working with other people in writing situations, that is like kind of a goal to achieve, is to get to that flow with another person.
But what you said at the beginning of this was that I come up with maybe an initial question, and then from there let it riff to be wherever it's going to go. And I have a natural question based off of something that you said. And that's the riffing. That's called riffing.
Yeah.
Did you know that we were going to get to this conversation where we are right now when we first started this conversation?
Not at all. Yeah.
And so, but this is about being open. This is about being open to fail.
Yeah.
Because in failure comes success.
Mm-hmm.
Without the understanding and the willingness to fail, success can never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So true. Yeah.
And that is a fortune cookie philosophy, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's fortune cookie because it's so damn true. But the thing is, you experience it in your life and over again. So the experiencing of it in your life is the proof of it. And also, some people quit. You know, they fail at something. You know, whether it be
those are the people that get defeated by failure. That's what I'm saying. People have to understand that failure is an opportunity to succeed.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you see failure as defeat, then that's the person that will never find success. And success will, and here's the other very important part of it: success will never find you.
Yeah. Well, what about also trying to be right all the time? You know, I mean, maybe that's a similar thing. Maybe you're just trying to be like, I'm not failing, I'm right. You know?
Well, that's the biggest problem for any job. I'm a scientist. I've coming in to trying to figure out another way to cure the coronavirus. And so the first 50 things that I'm going to come up with, I'm going to fail. But off of this failure, there's going to be something that works in that equation. Then I take that one little piece out of the 50 pieces of that math that I want, all these math equations. But there's one piece that goes, that stuck. Okay, let's take that one. And now the next bunch of experiments I have now coupled up maybe 8 equations that work, that somehow find their way to working together as a possible solution. Yeah. And then and that's science, right? Yeah. It's math and everything. And one of the things about what people don't understand in terms of acting, it's no different than understanding science and math, because there is patterns to everything we do. Things that come from our childhood issues, patterns of our relationships, patterns of things our go-tos when we get upset, patterns of how we comfort ourselves, patterns of how we push people away, and so you know my book. So the book has 12 steps, but the
book is called The Power of the Actor.
Yeah, and it's a 12-step technique,
which is a great book. It's one of those dog-eared books that I have, and I'm always referring to and making notes in. And it's just one of those things that is a handbook for the actor, and also it gives people an incredible framework so that they have a process.
It's a process that's tangible and it makes sense, and that's what I'm talking about math. So when we talk about how to get to stoned, trying to get to a high, like heroin high. There's a math to it. There's 8 steps before to get to that. I
love that part of the book.
Yeah,
where you can just be like, okay, I gotta be high on heroin. How do I just? And there's just it's almost like a recipe. It is a recipe.
Totally.
The recipe. Yeah.
Exactly, and there's a point A to point B to point C until you get to the whole recipe, but that's math. And so the thing is how I actually took a class when I took behavioral science, I took psychology, I took cultural anthropology. With all those sciences, I came up with the system, because I just wanted to recreate real human behavior. And one of the most interesting classes I had was a class called Breaking Down Human Behavior to Mathematical Equations. And it was so fascinating how you can really do that, which I actually did in the book. Yeah. But I thought at the time, what am I ever going to do with this class? I mean, this class is information. It's one of those useless, fascinating classes you take. But then this book became exactly what I learned in that class. It became so useful. But who knew? I mean, who knew when I was in school and, being a major screw up.
What did you set out to do originally? Because you apparently didn't want to be an actor. That wasn't on your mind, being an acting teacher. What did you want to do originally when you first came out of school or first was, in your youth? Not that you're not young now, of course.
Oh, cool.
But in your previous youth.
I Liar, pants on fire. So, what did I want to be? I wanted to be so many things growing up, but the main thing that stuck was being a writer and an actor. And so I found myself getting these writing jobs to support my acting. And then I also started teaching people, just, how like actors help each other with their parts and with their auditions and stuff. I was helping people. I found myself really enjoying that process. And people started saying that some of their best work was when we were just helping each other out.
Yeah.
And I was working, I worked for Cheech and Chong. I wrote at Universal Studios for some of their movies.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow. Which ones? Nice Dreams.
I don't remember because we're all too stoned.
They're all blend together.
There was a joke. Okay, so, too much weed was being smoked. Who remembers? But because I don't smoke weed, they did. I don't. I've written a lot of scripts. I've script doctored a lot. I wrote comedy pieces for TV Guide, for LA Magazine, for different magazines, and just I found myself making fairly nice money writing, and to support my acting habit, I got some acting jobs, almost all comedy stuff, and then the teaching, just I'd be on set and we'd be talking about, and I found myself, the time would go by so slow when I was acting, but when I was teaching, it would go really fast.
Oh, well, that's a good indicator of something you're interested in.
Exactly, exactly. And there's math again, because time got bent. Time got bent to 3 hours, felt like 10 minutes when I was teaching, and 10 minutes felt like 3 hours when I was acting. Yeah. So I'm going, this is not something I really want to do. But also writing. When I'm writing, I find the time goes by so fast.
Yeah. So, okay, so I want to know, did you base your system on, did you have a mentor, an acting teacher that you especially liked their process, that maybe that started you on this, building this process that you have?
No, it was more of a survival-oriented process. It was like the idea that I need to, because I had a very abusive childhood, physically and emotionally, and my mother was mentally ill and a hoarder and violent, and my father, who was a really good man, but he was just not there very often because he was so busy changing the world. He was a civil rights attorney. He was also attorney for build up labor unions. He got the first Black people to ACLU. He was one of those kind of people, but he was so busy day and night helping the world become a better place that he just wasn't there to fix all the issues that were happening at home. So I was self-destruction. I was in massive self-destructive land. So I found myself like going, I was acting, I was part of an acting group when I was 13, 14 years old. And I just found myself being so self-destructive, and I'm just making choices based on if your own mother can't love you and can hurt you this way, why should anybody? And why shouldn't I beat myself up because I deserve that? And so the system, as you know, because you know the steps, it's all about taking pain and finding ways to find prosperity from it, empowerment from it. And I needed to look at things differently. I couldn't see pain was something that was self-destruct with, but rather to construct with. And so a system was born of just my own ways of trying to deal with life, and also being an actor and just making choices based on that, and creating kind of a haphazard system that just became more and more formulated as I became a teacher, and I started to form. The original book was a 20-page book that had 14 steps. And,
really?
And then the second,
I wondered about that with the 12 steps, if it had anything to do with like a 12-step program, you know?
It just became too many steps at 14. So it's like,
what were the missing steps? What do you remember? Do you remember what the ones were that you got rid of?
Oh no, I didn't get rid of anything. I just combined.
It was consolidated. Yeah.
Consolidated. So it was like, and the second book was a silver book, and these are you can find these online on eBay. It's like that. It was a 40-page, which was a little more. It's still 14 steps, but it was more complete and more defined. But the steps is a place, and fourth wall was 2 different steps. I put the 2 together because they all have to make sense together.
Yeah.
And beats and actions, I were separated as beats and actions, and I put the 2 together because it also made sense together, and the rest is what it was.
It's interesting to me that it's a 12-step process. Get her book. I highly, highly recommend it if you're an actor or you're interested in acting or thinking about acting. It's the acting Bible. And one of the things that's interesting about it too is previous circumstances, which is step number 11, is a lot of times where people start. Because it's basically, what is this person about? What is their, their life? Do they have an accent? Do they have all these things that are, you think that people, I think, that see acting from the outside think of, like, oh, he's got an accent, he's got this, he's got that haircut, he's from, wherever. It's all in that step.
Well, but that's, and to me, it's like, I always use the example. It's like, do you like being lied to? And I'll just say to you, do you like being lied to? Well,
no.
Your answer? No. Well, if I'm playing a character, I'm not living the character, coming from a place of being authentic, then I'm lying to you. So your audience is going, I don't know why, but I'm off put by your performance because I'm feeling lied to. So we have to start from the place of objective, overall objective and scene objectives give us a story to be told. We need to tell a story. We're not just being a person. We are telling a story. The actors, the writers, the directors, and it's one of the reasons why my book is a Bible for directors and writers, is because we tell a story together. The actors, the writers, and directors have to tell a story together. And oftentimes when I work with a writer, because I work with a lot of writers and directors, I say, what is the overall objective of the actual script, so that you can then, when you're writing this, make sure that you're telling that story and that all the characters are being accurate to telling that story and telling that story in a uniform way. So the thing is about starting from objectives means that I am going to tell a story first. I have a beginning, middle, and end. That's a journey. Okay. Then I have to say, what is the character's journey? Why they do all the stuff that they do. Then I think, what does that mean to me? So I could make it authentic and organic. Then we go into personalizations. So the thing is we have to look at the journey first, tell a story. Because basically what we're doing is telling a story, and we got to remember that we're not just behaving. We're telling a story that has to have a beginning, middle, and end. Otherwise, it's just boring. It's like, I'm going to give it a great example.
I think you're so right, because you see this. Oh, give me an example. I don't want to.
Give you an example. Okay, so I just painted the wall red. Okay, and now I'm watching the paint go dry. It's really drying. Yeah. But it's not accomplishing anything. It's changing a bit color, because a wet paint goes from wet to dry. It changes a little bit of the dynamic of the color. But do I want to watch it for 2 hours? No beginning, middle, and end to that story. It's just paint drying.
I think a lot of writers don't realize that too. And in fact, you even see stuff, that's been fully produced, and you realize, oh, there's nothing pulling me along in the story. I'm not going, what's going to happen to her? Or what, remember that thing that happened in the beginning? What's going to happen? How's that going to work out? Are they going to go to jail? Are they going to die? Are they going to what? And if you're not being pulled along by that, you lose interest. And you're like, I don't know why I stopped watching that.
Yeah, and the problem is what people don't understand, I tell this to my students all over the world, is that there used to be a time when you had few options. You have so many options now. All the streaming, all the internet stuff, all the stuff that, all the different networks, all the different cable, networks, all the different, regular networks, and the stuff that's on your phone, the stuff that's on. There's so many options that I can change my mind fairly quickly that I don't want to continue watching this. Yeah. And so if you don't tell a story that's provocative, not a paint drying story, but it's a provocative story where there's a lot of obstacles, a great deal of depth and need, and overcoming universal obstacles like fears and insecurities and traumas. Because basically, people are people are people. It's one of the things I learned from the science of being a human being, the human animal. And no matter what the culture is different, the human needs are exactly the same. I've worked with just pretty much every culture that exists on the planet, and I found that everybody has the same issues with their parents, same issues with their mates, same issues with loneliness, same issues with abandonment, same issues of abuse, same issues of, like so many. There's nothing. It's nothing different. The human animal is the human animal. How we negotiate life is the difference between cultural realities. That's when we get into the science of anthropology, where agriculture, where weather, where geography creates religion, creates the need, creates what kind of foods that you eat and how you eat them, and what kind of religion that you're going to be driven towards off of just bottom line human needs that need to be taken care of. They're basic. But again, the whole thing is, if we look at it from the complication of the human animal and the science of what makes human beings do what they do, is fascinating.
I love what you do.
I love what I do.
And I love what you do about taking the script and allowing the actor to engage with it on a personal level, that they're trying to work out something in their life, something that is happening right now. And so that's the difference. I think one of the huge differences about your technique from other ones that I've done over the years is that you're taking a very present situation that you're having, you're putting it into the script so that you are very personal with what's happening, and you are speaking the truth using the lines that you have been given. And also the great thing about it is it allows you to do that quickly too. You're not like writing a backstory. You're not trying to figure out, the history of the character, everything. You're going right to what's happening in your life. What is something I can work out? And it is also can be therapeutic to the actor, strangely enough.
Well, it's not strangely enough. It makes sense, because we're looking at our issues based in childhood issues that like from the character's point of view first, and in childhood issues from your point of view, and how you're duplicating the character's journey, is that you're trying to, what we're constantly doing as human beings, we're trying to not feel bad anymore. I always say actors are the only people on the planet that want to feel bad. So, everybody else is trying to overcome it.
I wish I could feel that. I've had actors in your studio say to me, "Oh, I wish I was having more problems in my life, because then I could put them in my scene." And I'm like, "Oh no." They're like, "I think I'll go get in a fight with somebody on Facebook or whatever so that I can have a substitution for the scene." And I'm like, we've got substitutions everywhere. And I think when you first start doing your technique, because it is very technical in the beginning, especially if you're not used to it, because you have to find your overall objective. And we're used to doing that. We have to find our objective for the scene. But then when you start to personalize it, you have to say, and obstacles, we're used to finding that. But then when you personalize it, you kind of have to map it out and say, first of all, how is this happening in my life, where I'm trying to get this objective? And then you have to map the inner objects to that same substitution that you're using in the scene. And at first it seems unwieldy. And at first it feels like, oh, I keep doing the same thing over and over again, the same substitution. But after a while, you start to really see how it works. And you start to get emotionally engaged in scenes. You start to have that experience, like you said, where time goes faster. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm having a great time now.
I'm having a great time, because catharsis is great, because it feels good to go through catharsis. Yeah. And when people say to me, it's like, what if this stuff I'm bringing up sticks to me and I can't get rid of it? And I said, but you're not doing my system right now. My system is about solving it. It's about what is the solution. If you don't find some version of prosperity from your objective, from the inner work that you've chosen, prosperity meaning spiritual, emotional, or actual prosperity. If you don't find that, you're not doing what I'm asking you to do, which is to try to find some version of catharsis from your pain, because we don't want to sit in it because it feels icky. And I don't want people to feel icky. I want people to feel good.
Well, you actually turn acting into what some people see as suffering, like suffering artist, or they think, oh, I'm portraying a drug addict, so I got to go out and do a bunch of drugs. No, you make it into something that's actually healthy. And at the same time, you make better performances that way because the people are very emotionally and connected in the present. They're not like trying to remember when their dog died or whatever so that they can have an emotion.
The dog died thing, I was like that. It's like, my dog died. It was hit by a car.
Well, we had a lot of actors doing that.
Remember that feeling. I know it's horrible, but like, first of all, why would you want to remember that? And second of all,
well, when you're presented with like the method and kind of the way it was presented to us as we, with a sort of a reverence.
I've taken those classes, I know.
Yeah, and you're like trying to have these emotional recalls, and eventually also they kind of run out sometimes. Like you'll be halfway into the run of a play, and you're like, I don't really care if my dog died. I've gone over it and over and over it a million times. And your method gives it much more immediacy, which is super cool. What do you do in the middle of the scene, though, if all of a sudden you've kind of resolved in your life the problem that you've been trying to deal with in the scene? Do you just find a new one, or is that a phenomenon?
Well, to find resolve, because there is going to be something more you have to figure out. So, like recently, my mother died about a few months ago, and I thought I had resolved that relation. You have to be sorry.
Yeah,
you're gonna kill her. Do you?
Are you sure?
I wanted too many times, but anyway, I didn't kill her either. But anyway, the point is that I thought I had, because I hadn't talked to her for a while, I just felt I had resolved it because I was pretty cool with because she was old, she was dying, she had all these things, and I just thought, you know what, when she died, I'm going to feel numb or nothing much of anything because I resolved it. I'm going to put in quotes, resolved it. Mm-hmm. But then after she died, all this stuff came up because it really wasn't resolved. So I was actually talking about this in class the other day, and I said the only way we have to use things that are like unresolved, but sometimes we think they're resolved because we don't want to deal with them, and sometimes we think things are unresolved because we don't want to go to the places that really are unresolved. And so we go to the easy, safe places and say, that's my unresolved place. The only way to know that something is still unresolved and it's usable in today's world, because unresolved means it's today.
Yeah.
Going back to my mother's stuff, all the stuff came up. I realized I'm never going to have a mother because I never had one. So now her death meant I was definitely never going to have one. And that was actually a bigger loss I didn't know I'd even think about.
Yeah.
I guess it was not resolved. So so this is what I tell people. You want to know what's resolved and that's what's not resolved, is you try it. You try with the first page. And if it feels like it's resonating, it's going, this isn't resolved. There's stuff going, there's so much stuff I have to deal with. Or you do the first page and you thought it was unresolved. You thought you started feelings about that. And you find yourself having no emotion about it. So it's like, well, I guess I did resolve this. I thought it was unresolved. So the issue is trying it. The only way you know
it's interesting because your acting method is sort of scientific. Is you go, I think this is going to be a really good substitution. And then you do it and you're like, that didn't really happen. And then you try another one. You're like, whoa, that really just brought up all the stuff that I had no idea, because there's so much subconscious going on. Absolutely. That we're, obviously we're not really aware of. I want to ask you this because we're running out of time. When you're in class, you're extremely intuitive. I think this is one of the things about you that makes you a great acting teacher, is you seem to be able to really observe what's going on with the actor and give them something that is prescriptive rather than just something that you've said over and over to people. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes a great acting teacher. Is your method evolving as you go along? Like, since you wrote the book, are you still developing as it goes?
Well, if I stop learning, then I should stop teaching. And so the thing is, it's going to keep evolving, but the basic bottom line is the same. The 12 steps still are the same. Some new revelations about, like, just the whole thing I had with my mother just a couple of months ago. I have a whole new appreciation for unresolved deaths. that I didn't know I would have until I had it. And so just living life, watching other people live their lives and then having revelations off of their life.
Yeah.
An interesting thing came up the other day. This is something I actually never spoke about in any show before. So this is going to be yours. Going to be the exclusive.
All right.
And that is, I feel like there's a lot of times when you have to play someone who's a victim of abuse, a victim of sexual abuse, and a lot of people haven't had that experience yet. It's like, how do I get to those places? So it came up the other day that I was thinking about the genetic reality of trauma. It can be passed along in your DNA. You know that's the truth, right? In terms of science.
Sure.
Like, that's fairly new information. That kids came about 5 years ago that trauma can be passed along in your genetics. And then it had an aha moment in class like 2 days ago, which was, I became, a lot of my behaviors are based, Ivana's behaviors are based in someone who would have been sexually abused, but yet I've never been sexually abused. And it's not that I don't remember.
Yeah.
This never happened to me.
Yeah.
So, but why do I behave from a place of being sexually abused? My mother was sexually abused at 13 by her uncle. And then when she told her parents, they blamed her for it. She was 13.
Wow.
They beat her up and said she was a shame to the family and to never speak of this again because that would be a put of shame to the whole family. Her being molested by her uncle, her father's brother. And so I said, that's the trauma's in my DNA. That's why. And so that just occurred to me, that's how you can use this stuff when you're acting. Because the person says, well, I've never had this happen to me. And I said, well, you take, has anybody from your family, anybody that you're close to, so we can take their experience that you have a connection to, and you can utilize that. It's not just your own stories that we have, because our genetics, we've come to find out about 4 or 5 years ago in the scientific world, is that we own a lot more than our own personal histories. We own our ancestors. And our ancestors and our ancestors. So we have a world of information. It's wealthy. It's rich with.
Yeah, I think it's richer than you think, and I think part of the acting process is letting go and allowing that stuff to kind of appear without getting all intellectual about it. I find that there's the last step that you have in your process. It's called let go, and you know when you go in to perform the scene, you kind of have to let it all go. And I actually feel like when I do that, or one of the things that kind of got me into that zone is I just go, okay, now let's just let go and allow my body to feel and just feel what it's like to be in my body in the scene. I've done all the work. Let's let that happen. And when I do that, then I have all this emotional availability that I don't have when I try and muscle it.
Well, and natural impulses are allowed to happen. I call it inappropriate reactions. You know how, like, when you're at a funeral and you start to laugh about something, or you start to think in terms of there's a person on the pew and you're going like, God, I would love to have sex with that person. It's like inappropriate thinking that we do.
The Mary Tyler Moore scene with the clown stuff. Yeah. It's awesome.
That's why it was so funny and it was iconic, is because that's the truth of it. And actors, when they're acting at funerals, think they have to be sad the whole time.
Yeah. But
when you put the stuff into place, all 11 steps, and then you let it go, you're allowed to. Inappropriate things you're gonna laugh in the wrong place. You're gonna cry in the wrong places. You're gonna blurt sounds that don't make sense or inappropriate or vulgar to that moment in time. Yeah. And the thing is, but that's real, and that's when you pray for those moments to happen, and they only happen if you let it go.
Yeah.
And the let it go part of it is like one of the hardest things, because you have to trust that all that work you did is going to stick, but it will stick better than you ever thought it would. It's like, it becomes magical.
Exactly. And then you'll be like, oh, there's more here than I thought there was.
Exactly.
You know, this time has gone by really fast. So I've been having a really nice time with you, but we are at the end and we're going to have to let go. Let's just let go of our inhibition.
Let it go.
Yeah. So thanks so much for being on the show, Ivana. It's just a super treat. And if anybody wants to learn more about Ivana's technique, please get her book. It's available on Amazon everywhere, I'm sure. And then also she has her studio. And right now, there's great opportunities to take classes with great teachers like Ivana, because she's been doing some Zoom classes, right? You've been doing Zoom classes.
Zoom classes, and I have like 6 other teachers in the school that are doing them too. We also have in studio. We're back in studio with mandates, with very, very, keeping everybody safe mandates. Yeah. And we have for people that don't live in LA, we have Zoom classes that are people from all over the planet. We're making the planet the planet of our artists become a smaller planet through our being able to take technology and make it work for us as opposed to against us, which is knowing technology is so antisocial. But we've worked out a way to make it create a communication that we couldn't have communicated with people from outside of being in front of each other. So it's actually been pretty amazing. And I've had many, 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 many revelations. Also, the book's been translated into something like 18.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I didn't mention. You teach all over the world. In non-pandemic times, you travel all over the world, and we're talking everywhere. I don't even know how you do it, but you do.
I love it. It's so
you
fun.
Love it.
It's so fun.
But it actually, like you say, it literally crosses all cultural barriers, your acting technique. And because when it comes down to it, we're all kind of the same.
Absolutely. And also this, because for people, like you said this before we connected to the actual being in tapes, it's not just for people that are in the industry. It's like people it's really just about a way to live life and to live your life saying, my pain, my insecurities, my fears could either be used against me or for me. It's the most powerful fuel to overcome and win whatever you want in your life. Using the very thing that destroys most people, you can use it to create greatness. And whatever it is you choose you want, including a love story. So, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come from a place of understanding it as well as you do, because your questions are amazing because you understand it from inside your body. And that's makes it. It did go by really fast this time, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Because this is what I was talking about, having fun.
I know. Totally. It's a callback.
It's a callback.
Yeah.
I think you booked the job.
All right. All right.
Doesn't punch though.
Well, it's been great. And I will, talk to you soon, hopefully. And thank you again for being on the show.
You are so welcome. My pleasure.
All right, that's Ivana Chubbuck. There she is. That was some invaluable information for actors out there, some inspiration. I think that, a lot of times we need it right now because things are like topsy-turvy. So send this out to your actor friends, to your friends, to your comedian friends, because there's some really great information there from Ivana. Sure, you're welcome there, Matt Wright. Thanks for being here, everybody. I love Mole Marshall. That's me, Mole Marshall. I've got a great dance break for you, so hang in here. I just want to say next week, we're going to have Elizabeth Croydon on the show again. We're going to have a new cover from Mark Strignell, hopefully. And we're also going to have the remarkable Gunnar Rohrbacher back on because he's got a new book as well. So that's next week. But right now we've got a dance break. It's a really good one. I was looking for a good song to kind of round this thing out. It's great to see you, Cade. So I've got one of my favorite songs. So let's do it. Let's dance it out. And I will dance. All right, here we are. Yeah, so this is a gift. Kyle McKearney, he's a Canadian. I'll try not to talk through the whole thing. I'll dance more, talk less.
Spend my days with a woman unkind. Smoked my stuff and
tell you about that too next week.
all my wine. Made up my mind to make a new
All
start.
right.
I'm going to California with an aching in my heart.
Gladly.
Someone told me there's a girl out there with love in her eyes and power in her hand.
The banjo. So great.
I took my chances on a big jet plane. Never let them tell you that they're all the same. The sea was red and the sky was gray. I wondered how tomorrow could ever follow today. The mountains and the canyons start to tremble and shake as the children of the sun begin to wake.
Play this whole thing. They gave us permission. So
Seemed like the
delighted.
wrath of the gods got a punch on the nose and it started to flow. I think I might be sinking. Throw me a line if I reach it in time. I'll meet you up there where the best runs straight and high.
Thanks, Ivana Chubbuck, for being on the show today. So gracious of her to be here.
Find a queen without a king. They say she plays guitar and cries.
And thanks, everybody, for being here as well to witness. Hopefully this will be an episode people can watch in the future.
Steps of dawn, trying to find
I mean, it will be.
who's never been born.
Like that. What is that, an apple?
Standing on a hill of my mountain of dreams.
What's that?
Telling myself it's not as hard as it seems.
Tomato. Maybe a tomato. I don't know. You don't have to go to California to study with Ivana right now. Zoom. Catch y'all next week.